Welcome to Raising the Curve, a podcast designed to teach you everything that you need to know to be better with your money. Come and learn alongside me, Sophie Hallwright, a total beginner from the finance expert, Victoria Harris.
So I've asked all of the questions you wish you could so that finance, investing and growing your wealth actually makes sense.
Yes, it's expert education, but that we promise will not be boring.
And in the wise words of Cher,
my mom said to me, you know, sweetheart, one day you should settle down and marry a rich man. And I said, Mom, I am a rich man.
Come and talk and learn and laugh with us because together we really can raise the curve.
buying stocks and investing can be a little boring, even though we're trying to make it fun, Soph?
Well, I just think a lot of people assume that they're not interested in business. And actually, it's just the fact that it hasn't been presented in a way that is interesting to you.
Yeah.
But then in saying that, I think when it comes to investing, and particularly investing in the stock market, it is, you know, we've spoken about this a lot. It's like it's intangible. There's nothing that you can hold on to. That's why so many people love buying property, because they can see it, they can use it.
And there's a bit of ego and be like, this is my house.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I want to make it look pretty. Yeah.
You have house pride and investment pride, whereas stock market, you're not going to run around like opening up your investing
with
app
a
and like
portfolio on your t-shirt
No.
saying, I own this. And this is why this conversation with Meg Randell was so exciting, because I think it will relate to a lot of people, and it's all about investing not just in stocks and not in property and bonds and all that quote unquote boring stuff, but exciting things, particularly handbags. Because with many luxury items, you usually buy it and it's gone. Like if you invested in wine or champagne, you know, you buy it and you drink it and it's gone. Or a car, it depreciates in value so quickly. Whereas with a handbag, you can actually make a lot of money out of it. And she goes through all the different ways that you can do that, things you should look out for. I definitely came away being like, I need to diversify.
And there's one brand in particular that hikes its prices every year, which means that when it comes to if you want to buy a handbag that you can both use and enjoy, but also you know is guaranteed to increase in value, we talk about that. I think one of the most exciting bits for me was actually learning about how some of these handbags and brands came to be so iconic. Thank you, Grace Kelly and Samantha from Sex and the City, and how that is still reverberating today in terms of the way that this particular asset class, if you buy properly, you buy the right brands, you know how to look after them, you can actually make really great returns.
I think that's the hardest thing for you.
What?
Looking after them.
100%. I was listening to this episode again, like after our team had edited it, and I was like, I am so embarrassing. I started bringing up the idea of like, well, what if you have chewing gum in your bag? Or what if you accidentally do? And I was like,
And she's like, oh gosh.
she's like, wow, who am I speaking to?
But we also talked about buying new versus secondhand, how to spot if it's fake, how you can make sure that your investments really don't depreciate in value, aka chewing gum, and all of those things. So here is Meg Randell. Welcome to the studio. I guess I want to start. We had an event, it would have been the end of last year, with an auction house in New Zealand about investing beyond stocks and property and bonds. And it was so well received. And we were like, you know what, we want to have a follow-up discussion in terms of getting people interested in investing in things that they might not think that they can invest in. And so we wanted to get Meg Randell on the podcast to talk about specifically investing in handbags. So welcome.
Hi.
So can you just kind of give a bit of background in terms of what got you interested in investing in luxury handbags? Did anyone like spark your interest in particular? Were your parents interested in that? Like, how did you first get interested? Because it's like quite a niche.
Handbags are very niche.
Yeah.
It's getting less niche the longer I do it, interestingly. So I started specialising in handbags about 12, 13 years ago at auction. So I've always worked for auction houses. Strangely, my first job was as a ceramic specialist. So completely not handbags. But
ceramics as in bowls, plates.
As in bowls, yeah. It was
Wow.
a lot of Victorian sculptures of funny looking men and pretty women.
Oh my gosh, you and me are so different. I'm like art history and all of that kind of like sculptures and everything at school. I was like, I was like, I just don't get it. It's not 2 + 2 = 4.
Whereas I was very not good at maths. So we're coming at it from different sides.
Yeah,
Exactly. But so that was my very first job as an auction house. And whilst I was there, some people bought some fashion items in to sell, and I thought, well, that's a lot more fun. So I started sort of veering away from ceramics and towards fashion.
Yeah.
And then I moved to London and I was working at a small auction house as a smalls valuer. And whilst I was doing that, someone bought in a load of Chanel handbags and asked me to sell them.
Value them.
I will take those. Thank you. And they were so beautiful, but I freaked out because I thought, oh my God, I don't know anything about handbags. And really at the time, people weren't selling them. People were beginning to talk about, the value of designer handbags, but it was still sort of seen as that thing that people wasted money on that didn't really have any intrinsic value. But anyway, I did all the research on the Chanel. I taught myself how to authenticate. I think it took about 3 months of me having these bags before I actually put them to auction. Anyway, they obviously did hugely well. Everything sold. It all went for triple the estimate. It was amazing.
Were you like,
and I was like, okay, well, this feels more like something I want to do.
Yeah.
And I just think I was really lucky because it really was the start of this big boom of people selling designer handbags and the secondary market really taking off.
And when was this again? Was
about 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago. But I just happened to be there right at the start of this boom, which has been, brilliant for me. So very lucky. And more recently, Bonham's Auction House asked me to set up a department about 5 years ago in London. So Bonham's weren't doing handbags before that point.
I'm just fascinated by this subject because I think I've heard for so long about investing in stocks and investing in property and investing in crypto. And one of those things that as women we're classically made fun of is shopping.
Yeah.
And so the idea that we can make money from this type of investing is very exciting.
Huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually that's a huge difference that I've noticed over the years, that when I first started doing it, quite often you might get a couple coming in and, he's got classic antiques or ceramics or something that's known to be something you can sell at auction. And then they might say something throwaway like, oh, she's got a Chanel handbag, what a waste of money. And I'd be able to say, well, actually, what is selling really well is her handbags and maybe the traditional types of things that you thought you were investing in aren't currently that popular. And so I found it very, reassuring to be like, actually, listen to her because she hasn't wasted her money on these beautiful things that she's been enjoying for the last 10 years. We can actually sell those. You can release some equity. Whereas nowadays, nobody comes in and says, oh, it's just a bag. I know it's not worth anything. And what I've noticed is I'm getting more and more male clients. They know that there's an investment potential. So when we have auction previews before a sale, I'm getting more and more men turning up and being like, well, I know that's a Birkin, that's a good investment, and almost trying to talk their wife or their female friend into buying it.
It's almost like a win for both, right? Because the husband or the partner, if assuming that it's a man, thinks, okay, my wife's going to be stoked with this investment that they can enjoy that's not a waste of money. Because it's true that there are things you can buy that massively devalue. The fact that men invest, inverted commas, in cars, which are the most iconic depreciating asset ever, and yet we get so much shit for designer brands is just baffling.
I just think it's really interesting because investing in handbags, we're not saying it's the most safe, easy. If you buy a bag, you will make money. It's a fluctuating market and there are ways you can do it better than others. I think fundamentally, if you're buying something that you really love, you do get to enjoy it. So for a lot of luxury things, you buy it, you enjoy it, and then it's gone. Like a car or, I don't know, a bottle of wine or something. Whereas this, you buy it, you love it. Hopefully the market stays in your favor and you can either sell it for a similar price that you bought it for, and that kind of makes it like a free enjoyment. Or in some cases, it goes up in money. I mean, that is so satisfying that you've had this amazing bag for 3 years and then at the end of it, you end up sort of $5,000 up. I mean, that's amazing.
$5,000 up. Is that a thing? That much?
I mean, they can do.
Holy, what are we doing? We shouldn't be buying anything except Chanel handbags.
It's you should be looking at percentage, Soph.
What do you mean?
Percentage return.
Yeah, but how much would a Chanel... Let's just use that as an example. Let's say someone did go up $5,000 in 3 years, just using it as a, I know it's hypothetical. What would something like that have cost to purchase?
Chanel tends to appreciate in value if you're buying the classic design. So the classic flap bag is
Is this the one with the chain
and the quilted looking?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a nice CC turn lock. So that's the iconic bag. It's called the 2.55 because it was designed in February 1955 by Gabrielle Chanel. And one of the reasons why they tend to go up in value is that Chanel do these very aggressive price hikes year on year in their stores. Sometimes they increase the price of the same bag as many times as 3 times a year. So one bag can literally be 25% more expensive than it was 12 months ago.
Is that kind of concerning though? You're at the whim of Chanel. Like it's not supply and demand. Taking a stock, for example, it's like the more people that demand it, the more the price goes up. And whereas it's not the company going, we're going to put our share price up.
Or we'll limit the amount of bags we produce.
Yeah.
Or do they? Because that's maybe a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. I think that's like the Hermes model, isn't it? That they limit the,
Yeah. So Chanel, every time they put their price increase up, there's all these blogs saying they've gone too far. No one's going to buy it. And then people keep buying it.
And they do it again. And again. And again.
So it's this amazing thing where they're like, surely that's too much. So when I first started doing it, these classic flat bags were retailing at like £4,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that same bag is more like $9,500 now.
Oh.
Which, so they're a brand new Chanel classic flap is a similar price to a brand new Hermes Birkin, whereas it used to be sort of half the price. So that's kind of where the money is. With a Chanel bag, you are unlikely to buy it from the store and sell it the next day for more money. It will have gone down. But if you hold on to it, the retail price will have increased so much that actually you can sell it. So bags that you might have bought
absolutely
for
genius.
£3,000, you bring them to auction, they make £5,000. They're currently retailing for £9,000, but you've made £2,000 with a bag that you've carried. So that's kind of how that works in investment.
Chanel have absolutely nailed it. Like that's genius.
But surely there's
I'm sold. Off I go to buy a Chanel handbag.
What if you woke up one day and Chanel was like, look, we're really struggling. We're going to have to have 50% off sale for every item. I mean, they have never been on sale ever.
Yeah, they never have.
And that's the whole point. But I guess we'll come to diversification. Buy multiple bags from multiple different brands.
Yeah. So what Chanel has now done is they've released this quota. So it used to be you could go into a Chanel store and buy as many of these bags as you wanted. Well, now you're only allowed to buy 1 or 2 classic flaps a year.
Oh,
one
poor
of this,
me.
one of that.
Only 1 or 2 a year.
Has more than one of the same bag.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
No, because if I had the money to invest in things like that, and when I say invest, I mean I would be buying it thinking, I'm so clever, I look so hot, but I'm so clever.
Yeah.
I would diversify and buy lots of different styles and brands and colours and shapes. I wouldn't be going and getting 2 a year.
But I think that's the whole decision is like, is this something that I just want to buy and use and I don't care if it depreciates in value, or is this something I want to buy and use but actually have it as an investment over the long term? And I think that's the different mindset. If you're in camp 2, then you're kind of not looking at the hottest trend. You're looking at the longest lasting trend. Exactly the same as investing in stocks. Going back to what you said before around like how, the wives or the woman used to come in and be like, oh, it's just a waste of money. And now it's actually like, no, it's an investment and there's actually value in it and it can appreciate in value. What do you think was that change in tone or change in tide of realizing that handbags are not only just frivolous items, but they're actually investments?
Yeah, well, I feel it's got a lot to do with the rise of sort of secondary e-commerce online. They just became more popular. There used to be a bit more of a stigma, oh, it's a secondhand bag. Whereas now, people are impressed, oh, you got that at auction, or you got that secondhand, or, you got that bag that was so big in 2012 and then they haven't released it again. So, it's all part of buying in a more sustainable way. It all sort of feeds into all these narratives.
Is it also the companies themselves limiting the supply and doing like limited releases and realizing like if we do 200 of these bags and never do them again, then that's going to lead to an increase.
I thought you were going to say
sort of, but when people talk about investment, it's Hermes number 1 and Chanel number 2, and then the others are much sort of further down the line. So really it's Hermes, and they've always had very limited appeal. They've not had limited
limited stock, limited supply.
Yeah, limited.
It's really hard to find someone that likes their bags.
Yeah. They're going down and down in value. Yeah. Right.
But they've always had limited stock. They're handmade things. A Kelly takes about 24 hours to make. A Birkin takes about 32 hours to make. They're completely made by hand. They've always been limited. The Hermes market is kind of what fuels the whole thing. The model of buying at Hermes is just fascinating.
How did the Birkin become the Birkin?
Can we talk
Like,
about
I know
that? 'Cause
obviously
I don't know enough about
the
it.
actress.
I don't even know this.
okay, yeah.
Can we start from the beginning? I'd love to know.
Happily.
Oh, I thought
She's like,
you
this
were
is
gonna
my
ask me
sweet spot.
sooner.
Yeah.
Okay, give us the story, because there'll be a lot of people that know the name Birkin.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people.
What did you say?
I knew I'd do it again. I was about to say I did this in a live podcast record that we did in New Zealand. I called it a Birkin accidentally instead of a Birkin.
And it was a live podcast. And I was looking at her like,
And that goes,
do
I
I
can't
even like
believe you
react?
just said that. And I was like, what? And she was like, do you want me to repeat it? I was like, oh my fucking God.
The audience was a bit like,
Yeah, but anyway, we'll cut that out.
Birkin.
Can you give us a rundown of actually how it became famous and why there's so much value tied up in this particular bag?
Yeah. So there are two Hermes bags that really are the creme de la creme, at the top of the game. So it's the Hermes Birkin and the Hermes Kelly. So the Hermes Kelly was designed in sort of the early 1900s, and it was very popular with sort of Parisian women, but in a very limited way. They're completely handmade. They were just sort of available in the Paris boutique. And then in the 50s, Princess Grace Kelly was filming To Catch a Thief with Alfred Hitchcock, and Edith Head, the costume designer, gave her an Hermes Kelly as part of her wardrobe. It doesn't make it into the film, but Grace Kelly loved the bag. There's this very famous photo of her, and she's pregnant, but she hasn't yet announced it to the world, and she uses her Kelly.
Is it this one?
Yeah, exactly. It's that photo.
Oh my God.
It's such a great
and
photo.
so the handbag covers the bump.
So the handbag covers the bump, and that was the photo that all the newspapers used to sort of break the story of the fact that she was pregnant with this prince's son.
Hermes would have been like, yes, great product placement.
Yeah, exactly. And so after that, everybody wanted this bag. Hermes officially renamed it after her in the 70s. But that was really the first bag that got Hermes from a mediumly successful French brand to this sort of global sensation. It was really American women that sort of pushed it up. And then it was in the early 80s that the Birkin came about. And the story behind the Birkin, whether it's true or not, is that the English actress Jane Birkin was on a flight between Paris and London, and she happened to be sitting next to the director of Hermes at the time. And the idea is that she'd put her bag in the overhead luggage and all of her stuff had fallen out. And she said, God, I wish someone would design a leather bag big enough to hold all of my stuff. And he was like, well, let's design one now. And they designed the Birkin.
On the plane?
Yeah, on the back of a sick bag is the story. The idea of them designing this bag is really interesting because the bag already existed in a bigger size. It's just the smaller version. So then that came out in 1984, a few years later, and it was always called the Birkin. So it was always named for her. And again, it was really popular. People really liked it, but it wasn't global the way it is now. And then in the 90s, Sex and the City did a whole thing about it. So Samantha's trying to get a Birkin. And is horrified.
Of course she is.
Yeah. Is horrified to find out that there's this like 6-month waiting list. Anyway, so that's kind of what really puts on people's radars.
It's also like a status symbol now.
And so,
exactly.
This is so controversial. I don't like the design.
If I bought my own Birkin,
Yeah.
I think I would retire. That would be success for me.
Do you mean
I
that
could
would be
afford my own Birkin.
symbolic
Yeah.
of you
Being
retiring?
like, you have nailed life.
Not
well
because
done you. I mean, it might sound very
materialistic.
Yes, thank you. In terms of like, but there is this weird status. So and it's an investment, so it's still going to grow in value.
But can I just say I don't like it?
So what's that? That's like 40,000. Would you say?
No.
No,
So, I mean,
roughly.
a new leather Birkin, they retail at around 9,000 now in leather. They're cheaper for the smaller ones, although smaller ones sell for more on the secondary market.
This one's online for £198,000, and it's a.
You wouldn't like that. It's
No,
snakeskin.
I'm not going to lie. I actually think that's the nicest one I've seen.
Yeah,
It doesn't
with
align
it-
with my
yeah,
values,
no.
but I must say,
But I
that's
think
quite
also
cool.
if I had £9,000, I would prefer to invest in a handbag that I can use that is still going to grow in value than put that in the stock market and it effectively disappear.
But the thing with Hermes at the moment is they are really hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
In the primary market. So it used to be you'd put your name down on a list and then any time between 6 months and 18 months later, you'd get a call and your Birkin would be red. So it was a real, you have been waiting for it. Here it is. But they've done away with that. So now it's actually much more difficult. And it's a lot less official. So there's no official rules of how to buy a Birkin. And, there'll be some stories of people going into a store saying, I'd like to buy a Birkin, and then them saying, yeah, here you go, £9,000, please. Usually you'll be told, we don't have any Birkins, we don't have any in stock. The way in which to get a Birkin now or a Kelly is to have enough of a buying portfolio with Hermes. And it's only once you've spent enough will you be allowed to buy the bag that you want.
They'll be like, who are you?
Yeah. Mrs. Iglesias?
This is Uncle Iglesias. I have a big
I was in here buying
I've got a big Hermes portfolio.
Yeah. It's something like £40,000 or £50,000 that you have to have spent before you're allowed to buy a Birkin or a Kelly. And you can only buy the less popular sizes or the less popular colours. The more you spend, the more control you have on what you can buy. And, if you want to buy exotics, you'd have had to spend even more. And it's not official. It's not like, here are the rules. And it's really interesting because obviously some people hear that and they think, I don't want to play that game. But the majority of people that I deal with, they love the game. It's part of it. The brand new bags, that's where you get this huge uptick. So like this bag, they bought it from Harrods for £5,500, bought it directly to us in Knightsbridge. We put into sale because it was brand new. It sold for £36,000. So sometimes you can flip numbers.
They bought it for $5,000 and then gave it to you, and then you sold it for $36,000.
Yep.
What happened in between?
Well, because of the sort of bag that it was, nobody could just go into Hermes and buy it if they didn't have this huge portfolio. So they only bought it for £5,500, but they'd already spent hundreds of thousands of pounds in that store.
Got you.
We call it Birkin Bait. So buying other things.
Birkin Bait? I love it.
I know. It's so funny.
I reckon we should do a little trial.
What do you mean?
Go into an
see
Hermes
who
store.
can look most expensive and
just see if any of us just go to a
Actually
few
quite
Hermes
funny.
stores and
See if
just
you
see,
get served.
just see the process.
That's a very good idea.
Just wear big sunglasses, big hat, just heaps of jewels, and just look.
I think you can do a good bitch face when you want to. I think that you
Be
would
like,
look
do you not
way
know
more
who I am?
expensive. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask was just around hearing you speaking like the price of the bags and everything. Like it's a very niche market. The great thing about investing in stocks is like if you have $10, you can start growing your portfolio and all that. Is there any way that you could invest in handbags and get that appreciation and value without having to fork out the full amount?
Yeah. Buying secondhand bags is a really great opportunity because you can obviously have more control about what you can buy because you don't have to buy it from the store. You get a greater variety.
What I'm trying to say is like if you want to buy art and you can't afford a big piece of art, there's syndicates, you can band together. Does that exist with handbags or is it just the secondhand market that's slightly more accessible?
I mean, there aren't syndicate buying yet. But for those who don't have, Hermes amounts of money, which is most of us.
Yeah.
There are lots of brands that you can buy on the secondary market that are fairly affordable. I mean, the prices of stuff that I sell in my auctions, we start at £100. Some of it, it isn't wildly expensive. You can't buy a brand new Louis Vuitton bag and then sell it and get the same amount of money or more. But a lot of them just are eternally popular. There's a lot of designs that have been around for decades and decades and decades. And so they might currently retail at £1,000 in store, but you'll probably be able to sell them for £400, £500, £600, even if you've really used it. So that's having a bag, using it for its purpose, really enjoying it, and then being able to sell it for some money at the end. So, still releasing some equity once you no longer want it.
At what point would you need to say this is no longer valuable? I can no longer sell this on.
Depending on the brand, but Hermes and Chanel, definitely, even in the worst condition, you can still sell for money. Louis Vuitton, actually, people will still take it in really poor condition. Yeah. But, if it really needs restoration, if it doesn't function as a bag anymore, there are lots of companies that restore bags for you. So Hermes Chanel have their own really great, they call them handbag spas. And
oh my God, I love that. The Birkin Bait and the handbag spa. This is great.
They can make them almost back to a brand new bag because most of these bags that we're talking about, they are handmade. They're kind of, they are designed to last, so you should always be able to repair them. So, some of our buyers really like the ones in terrible condition because they will then go and get them restored, and then that sort of adds value.
I was going to say, it's almost like renovating a house.
Yeah, that's what, as I was saying, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's like adding a bathroom in.
Yeah, exactly.
Why have like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, why have they not got classic handbags that are doing as well?
They have a much bigger output of designs, and they haven't really limited the supply in the way that certainly Hermes and now a bit more Chanel has. But then things like the Christian Dior saddlebag. So that was a really big bag. It came out in 1999, designed by John Galliano. And then they've just sort of been kicking around. And, 10 years ago, I'd get offered a lot of auctions because they were no longer in fashion. 6 years ago, they re-released it. And when they re-released it, they gave loads of influencers a free bag. And then on the same day, Instagram was just full of all these glamorous people being like, I love my saddlebag. And they went wild. And they've actually stayed pretty popular ever since.
Gosh, we're such sheep, aren't we?
I know.
Yeah.
I like to think sometimes I have a bit of individuality, but no, I don't. I don't at all. I copy your
Devil
clothes.
Wears Prada scene where they're like,
I love
that belt, you think this belt is just like
that blue jersey was pulled out of it.
by people like me.
Yeah. Do you have any fun stories about bags that have had a really incredible return where you're just like, whoa, that was kind of an anomaly, or quite an amazing story that might motivate some people to what?
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Antiques Roadshow, when
exactly.
people come on and they're like, I found this in the bottom of the basement. And they're like, oh, well, if you hadn't drilled a hole through it, it would have been worth 300,000.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the saddlebag. So before it was re-released, I had, I'd been selling them at auction for a couple of £100. And I remember I had this very beautiful ostrich skin, purple one with like a bejeweled chain. It was so gorgeous.
Wow.
And we put it in at 4 to 600 and it didn't sell. And like the vendor would have taken 200. Like he really didn't care. It was just an old bag. So I gave it back to him, and then they re-released it. And I said, can I try that bag again at auction? He's like, I guess you can, if you really want to try it again. And we put it in auction. It sold for £2,000. And, 8 months ago, anyone could have bought that for £200. But, it was just before they'd re-released it. So fashion can have this huge uptick. If you can trend forecast, you can just make so much money on, buying things before they get re-released, or understanding, this is what is going to be really fashionable in a few years.
We should get people on the world's biggest investing club, get fashion forward people who know the trends in handbags, so that we can all buy the things that are currently selling for almost nothing.
Or just get them to talk to us. What about the cost of living crisis, people not spending as much money on this stuff? Like, have you seen a bit of an influx in people selling?
We do find that actually our clients, even when, there's cost of living crisis or there's, big political events happening, you think, oh my goodness, will that really change things? But I think buying things like bags, that's a nice thing to spend money on. People actually would rather have that thing that they can actually see and that they know that they like, and it makes them feel better, rather than other things, investments that maybe you can't see, or you're worried about what's going to happen. Often we find more people buying bags because I think they almost want that reassuring thing, or, it's just something nice to put your money in. And, they might just be buying it because it's shopping. Because
That's mom joke.
Little mom joke.
It's a good joke.
I would, sorry.
No, just on that. The thing with investing in stocks and property as well is like there's a lot of...
She just can't give up on investing in stocks.
No, I'm trying to compare. Like, you can wake up every day and see the value of your investment. And the thing with investing in handbags, kind of like property. Like, you don't wake up and get a letter in the post saying this is the value of your house. So what would be the biggest reason people sell? Is it that because it's going up?
So that's really interesting. So what I find is that people, they just know when they're ready to part with their bags. People just know. And a lot of the time they're selling because they're going to buy another one. I do actually find that whilst people are buying with investment in mind, not that many people are selling specifically because they have noticed that is this reason.
It's not the value is not the primary driver. It's almost like there's an emotional attachment, and then the bonus is that the value changes, or What's
the most absurd amount of handbags that someone's owned?
I mean, that's my favourite part of the job. And because Bonhams is international, I've got to travel around Europe, go into people's wardrobes.
Oh my God.
Whose people's wardrobes have you seen? That's so exciting.
I mean, it is amazing. I was in this wardrobe in Italy, and it was essentially an entire floor of this like 5-story house was just for handbags and clothes. It was amazing.
You like, surely you wouldn't miss if I just took one.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
You'd never know. And that apartment was amazing because one of the rooms was a kitchen, but they were just using it as a wardrobe.
How are you not
just like
losing it and being embarrassing?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I do lose it.
It's like seeing a famous celebrity. You're like,
yeah,
hi.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's nice because typically the people who have these collections, they want them to be like appreciated. You know, it's great that someone comes in and goes, "Oh, I love your bag. You know, what a great collection."
I would love to know, what are the top buying tips for people? Mm-hmm. So let's just say someone's wanting to invest in a beautiful handbag.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that we should be asking ourselves, looking out for? I mean, we've made it clear on the 2 best brands in terms of price, but whether it be condition or color or who owned it.
So when you're buying for investment, stick to Hermes and Chanel. Stick to the very classic models, the ones that have been around for decades, because they are less likely to go out of fashion. But also, you know, stick to pretty neutral colours. You can also do things like buying Louis Vuitton artist collabs. They collaborate with Murakami and Yayoi Kusama, and those can really go up in value. Those can be really collectible, but they have also done artist collaborations that aren't so popular. So those can be great investments, but they're not always great investments. So I think really think about who the artist is and, you know, how popular they're likely to be. I think the biggest, the most key thing is obviously authenticity, because that's it's a huge part of what we do. We have 3 specialists at Bonhams in London, and, you know, sometimes we even get a 4th opinion as well, because you cannot be too careful when it comes to authenticity. There are some amazing fakes on the market that are, you know, most people can't spot, and you need a lot of training. So if you're buying from the secondary market, you know, buying from an auction like Bonhams, where you know that they've gone through an authentication process and you're protected, is a really good idea. But if you're buying from other places, I think just feel empowered to ask as many questions as you can. You know, keep asking questions. You know, I've been to amazing collections where 95% of the bags are real, and you think, well, of course, all this woman's bags are real. She's this multi-millionaire. And there'll still be some fakes in the collection, whether she knows it or not.
Oh, no, imagine.
So you have to be so careful, because it's really hard. And, you know, if you buy a fake online, it's probably quite hard to get your money back. And then things like condition, just you really have to be careful of condition. You know, how's it been stored? Has it been
How
stored?
does it need to be stored? Is there specific, like, out of the sunlight? You know, I mean, probably
not
that.
on a Lime bike.
But what?
Yeah. Definitely in places like Dubai and in Hong Kong, they do have temperature-controlled wardrobes because of humidity and heat. So they need to be stored out of direct sunlight. They'll come in like a dust bag, a canvas bag that it's best to store them in so that you don't get anything nasty on them.
What about insurance?
Yeah.
Is it vital to get insurance?
So more and more often people are itemizing their Hermes bags on insurance.
Well, I'm just thinking about, like, me with stuff. I'm so bad. I cannot keep hold of anything to save my life. It's just such a problem. I'm thinking, imagine if I got insurance just because I spilt something on it. I'm like, oh, the house went up in flames. Like, what's wrong with my bags?
Well, no, the insurance company would be like, hi, Sophie, you again.
Oh, God. But yeah, you'd have to be careful even not putting things like chewing gum, anything like that could potentially...
Yeah, or the amount of bags that...
what would you even put in it then?
We get bags and there'll be chewing gum in them, or there's always
Mine's
pen
makeup,
marks.
pen marks, yeah.
Pen marks, you know, water bottles that have opened. So if you're,
Lunch
you know, if you're
spilled from
using
my
your
bag.
bags, which obviously you should use your bags, but you've just got to be really careful that nothing goes into it, you know, with the lid off, you know, put a liner in the bag.
I was going to say, maybe it's
sure.
having a bag within the bag to put everything in.
My last question is around secondhand versus new. Like, is it better to buy secondhand because you know the value, whereas in a shop buying it brand new, there's maybe a tendency that it might depreciate in value over time? Like, what's better? And obviously you're a bit biased.
It's so yeah, exactly. Buy from Bonhams, whatever you're doing. Always
Definitely
Bonhams.
secondhand.
It really depends on the bag. There's a feeling that quality is going down slightly with a lot of the brands. So a Chanel bag made in 2007 is probably a higher quality to a Chanel bag that's made this year. So sometimes buying vintage is a really, it's definitely a safer way. You're probably buying it for less than it's retailing for in the store, unless it's one of these really hypey Hermes bags. So that, if you're buying them secondhand, the chance of them, keeping their value or increasing is slightly higher. But if you're playing the real, like the Hermes game, then, buy brand new and flip them immediately. And that's the way of doing it. But if you're looking at long term, I would definitely say buying secondhand, because you're more likely to get it at a slightly more affordable rate. The chances are the prices will stay strong. And buying at auction is just great because we get such a variety of pieces.
How much do you reckon the Bottega clutch bag is going for these days?
Did you buy this?
Yes, it's the most expensive bag I bought, and I
Can
wore
I
it
see?
like twice.
Yeah.
And it was so on trend, and I'm
Which
so
one?
gutted.
Oh,
Hey.
the brown one.
Yeah.
The
It looks kind of better than that in person, but
does it?
I'm really gutted with myself because it's not even a bag I use every day, like it's like a special occasion bag, but then I just don't use it. And
Yeah. Bottega Veneta retails very high. On the secondary market, it tends to be a lot more affordable.
good question. At what point do you just like cut your losses like a stock, that's gone down and down and down?
Out of fashion.
Out of
Are we talking-
fashion.
This is
Yeah.
a great example.
At what point do I sell the clutch?
I think you do it when you want to cut your loss. When you're no longer getting joy, when it
Every
starts to
time.
be more of a burden. It's
Yeah.
taking up too much space.
Every time I see it in my wardrobe, I'm like, ugh,
How much
Yeah.
did you? Do you mind me asking
it's
vaguely?
about £4,000.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
That was not a cheap bag.
No, I
What
know.
would we say vaguely she could sell?
That's when
it
I
on
had
for?
serious lifestyle creep. Yeah. And now I've got reverse lifestyle creep, and I'm like, who wants to buy my Bottega?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
What do you have any idea what something like that could sell for?
It would probably sell for between sort of 800 and maybe 1,400, something.
That's still pretty good, Vic. It's better than
No, I'm
having
going to
something.
keep it. I reckon I have faith. I have faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meg, can you
Yeah.
promise me if you get an email from Vic at like 11 p.m. one night being like, it's me, it's time.
Yeah, it's time.
Make sure you CC me
I'm
back.
two
in the-
margaritas deep and I'm depressed about my Bottega. Need some money.
Oh, this has been so
Yeah,
amazing.
thank
I
you
feel
so
like I've
much.
learned so much.
And such
Yeah.
like a, very interesting conversation.
There's a lot to it, isn't
Yeah.
there?
I also must say you're very approachable
Oh.
compared to what I would imagine someone that works at such an incredible, like I know
Yeah.
that sounds, but I'd be really intimidated to go
Yeah.
to an auction or something.
Well, that's another
Yeah.
thing. So at Bonhams, you can talk to us. We're friendly. We want to talk to you about your collection. We're interested in our buyers as well, and we want you to have a nice time because it's fashion. It needs to be fun. It needs to make you feel good about yourself. So we don't want people to think, I couldn't go to auction. Auctions are scary. We're not
no,
scary.
I would definitely, I'd love to go.
Yeah,
I'm
well, I
actually
have
just
sales
looking
all
at your
the time,
website. Looks
so-
like everyone looks awesome. I'm so impressed. Honestly, the website's beautiful. I'm all about it.
No, but I love
good.
the approachability because it's like with anything with investing, it's always this like exclusive club. And so
Yeah.
it's nice to have someone like yourself that's like explaining the basics, trying to demystify it, making it more open for everyone and being, very accessible. So thank you.
Oh, can I have one last question?
Yep.
If we were say there's someone out there that doesn't want to buy an Hermes or a Chanel, but they also do want to get an investment piece.
Yeah.
Are there any ways of spotting up and coming investment brands, or is it one of those things that they just have to stand the test of time?
Yeah, they have to stand the test of time.
It's like buying Microsoft. The slow and steady wins the race rather than buying the hot or trying to figure out what's the next hot stock.
Says
just
the
stick
one
with-
that bought the brown Bottega bag.
I know. Do what I say, not as I do.
But thank you so much for coming in,
my
Meg. It was
pleasure.
so
Yeah,
great to
thank
have
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking with your friends about your salaries, all of that stuff.
And if you like what you heard, we would love if you could please hit subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode.
And it only takes 1 second and it would really make our week, our month, our year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please do it. Okay. Love you. Bye.